Good morning, Kenya. This is Kenya News Alert and I'm your host, House of Zulfa. Karibu, leo ni tarehe 15 ya mwezi wa kwanza mwaka huu wa 2025. And I have another person today. Let them introduce themselves.
Yes. This is Felix. Welcome to our show today. And Zulfa.
Yes.
I think leo watu tuko na mambo mazuri ya kushana watu. And I'm really happy to join you people today.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Kidogo.
Yes.
Kidogo karibu, we have missed you. Sawa, it's been some time, yes? Lakini jana at least ukasalimia watu. And a lot is happening right now in Kenya. A lot. Alozema umekuwa ukiangalia, a lot is really happening.
Yes.
Kuna issue ya vetting wa CS, kuna issue ya CS mturi, kuna issue ya watu kupiga DCI, kuna issue ya a lot of issues that are happening in Kenya. Sindio?
Yes.
But you know, as always, we always start with Taifa Leo. So, sijui umefika kwenye Taifa Leo. Ndo tuchambue gazeti la leo. Okay, so kuna kilio tumbili wakishambulia na kujeruhi wakazi wa Lesos. Kuna uvundo wa Mungiki unavyoendelea kuandama Mainanjega licha ya kuokoka. And there is Kenya ya choma picha raia wa kigeni 50 wakitekwa. Okay, and there is masaibu ya Khalif Kairo ni mwiba wa kujidunga au kuletewa na mahasidi. Sawa? So we're gonna get into uvundo wa Mungiki unavyoendelea kuandama Mainanjega. Sindio?
Okay.
So let's get into that.
Unajua Zulfa, kitu yenye according to the way I'm thinking right now, kitu yenye inaweza changia Mungiki ku come up maybe na ianze kukua strong sahi. Maybe ni kwa sababu ya hizi programs. Unaona?
Yes.
And sasa maybe wanajaribu ku come up either kutumia hiyo advantage unaelewa, either kuexploit watu ama kuleta amani. Hizo vitu mbili.
Yes. But you know sasa Mungiki they stopped being amani.
Mungiki wanajuanga kitu inaitwa amani.
So although tuliambiwa kuwaletana kama religious group, but sasa kafika place ikaacha kuwa kuhusu religion, ikakuwa tu ni vurugu. So you can't say that these people they are bringing amani. And you know Mainanjega alikuwa ni mkubwa wao. Na ikakuja kafika place juu eti akashikwa, juu akasema ameokoka. But right now vile amerudi akaanza kupigana na Gachagua imebaki, he is still the boss of Mungiki. So let us see what Taifa Leo is saying. Yes.
Okay.
So anasema aliyekuwa kiongozi wa kundi haramu la Mungiki Mainanjega aonekana kuendelea kuandamwa na maovu ya kundi hilo anapoanza kuwania viti katika ulingo wa kisiasa. Licha bwana Njenga kutangaza kuwa amekatiza uhusiano wake na kundi la Mungiki na kujaribu kuwania nyafadhi za kisiasa kwa miaka 20 hajaweza kufaulu. Aidha ametangaza kuwa anawania wadhifa wa kisiasa katika uchaguzi mkuu ujao mwaka wa 2020 mwaka wa 2027, that is sawa, na huenda uvundo wa Mungiki ukaathiri ndoto yake mara nyingine. Hii ni kwa sababu aliyekuwa naibu rais Rigathi Gachagua mwenye ushawishi mkubwa katika eneo la Mlima Kenya amedai kuwa analenga kufufua kundi hilo linalosababisha maafa na mangaiko kwa wakazi wa eneo hilo. Aidha bwana Njenga ameendelea kuhusishwa na Mungiki katika mahojiano kati yake na wanahabari na shughuli zake za kisiasa. Kwenye mahojiano yake ya Taifa Leo nyumbani kwake eneo la Kitengela, Bwana Jenga pia alizungumzia madai yaliyoibuliwa na baadhi ya viongozi kwamba anatumiwa na Rais William Ruto anayekabiliwa na upinzani mkubwa katika eneo la Mlima Kenya. Bwana Jenga hata hivyo alihakikisha Taifa Leo kwamba hajakodiwa na Rais Ruto amsaidie kuelekeza uchaguzi mkuu wa 2027, akisisitiza kuwa lengo lake ni kuhakikisha kuwa watu wa eneo la Mlima Kenya wanapata nafasi katika afisi kuu serikalini. Okay, so that is what he is saying. Bwana Jenga anasema he has not, unajua watu wanasema is a project of Mr. Ruto. Do you think that is that?
Sasa Zulfa,
yes,
utajuaje? How will you know?
Unajua I can't go for sure to say that we don't know though. We don't know who is the government project. We don't know who is not a government project. Sindio? Like watu wamesema that CS Muturi ameongea kuhusu hii shughuli yake ya kidnapping after everything that happened to him. Yes? But unajua saizi that is that. Sindio? And do you know that right now that CSs are getting vetted? And yesterday we saw something about Kambogo being vetted. Tukapata mtu akona 3 billion and all that. Watu Mutai Kagwa akona 842 million not worth. So like we saw that. Yes?
Wacha kuanza nikuulize. You see that maybe watu wengine walizaliwa vizuri ama?
Kuna watu walizaliwa vizuri.
Hizo zote.
Kuna watu
na hata imagine anapitanga hata kwa street. Unaona vile watu wanateseka.
Na hata ajali. Hata isema acha nichukue mtu mmoja.
Ama alikuwa na fake.
No, they can't lie there. They you know huwezi danganya pale. Huwezi danganya pale. Like unadanganya aje pale? You cannot lie. You cannot lie about that. Because already washa research, washajua kama ndo hivyo, kama so hivyo. You cannot lie. So the thing is, yes, CSs are getting vetted. Na saizi anaitwaje? Lee Kinyanjui being vetted by Parliament Committee. Sindio? Can we see that, please? Can we see that? We want to see the CSs and we want to listen to them. Tusikie hizi vitu ambazo wanatuambia, because tuliambiwa juzi ma-CS wanasema ya kwamba that there is nothing actually, there is nothing that they do kwa offices. They just there for formalities. Wanasikia wanapata taarifa venye sisi tunapata taarifa kama already everything is posted. So can we see about the vetting of these people?
Yes. Tukiendelea kusubiri producer atuweke. Tuna producer atuweke gani Zulfa hiyo? Anafaa
kuweka kuna hiyo CS Lee Kinyanjui.
Lee Kinyanjui.
Yeah, being vetted.
Okay. Zulfa, hii story ya 300 billion. Una get? Hii story ya 300 billion.
Yes.
Haki mimi sijui wewe
that is 300 billion and 3 billion.
Oh, 3 billion. Si 300.
Aiwe 300 ametoa 300 billion.
Wewe nani Zulfa? Do you think wewe una interpret? By the way sijui kama una interpret hiyo kitu kama mimi.
That is a lot of money. That is a lot of money. Let me tell you, that is a lot of money. Me, if I'm given that money, I would just like maybe retire, go. Already I have like a house somewhere on a beach. Unaona? I just go there. Maybe I just live there. No matter hata Zulfa kwenu hata ni hivyo. We are done. You will never hear the name Zulfa again. Nitakuwa naishingi huko. You won't know a thing about me. Kwa beach too, surrounded, iko vizuri. Perimeter wall, beach asubuhi, beach usiku. Niko tu beach. Nyumba yangu imejengwa hapo kando ya beach. Aish.
Producer anasema tumkumbushe video yenye mlisema.
Ni hiyo ya
producer amelala kwa masikio, amelalia masikio.
Nashtuka. Liki Nyanjui be invited. Liki Nyanjui be invited. Wanna really get deep into that.
No masana. Yani unapata mtu anaweza pita kwa barabara anaona vile wamama wanauza hata maemba hapo.
Mtu unajua alikuwa anapeanaga pesa sana ni Sonko. Sonko angepita like upate maybe unauza nyanya na hizo nyanya zako anunue nyanya karasi moja ile ya 50 bob, anunue bila hata na ya 5k. Ama anunue na 10k.
Zulfa mbona walimpichi Sonko?
Si alikuwa ameanza kuongea ukweli nyingi. They don't want that, yes? Akaanza kuamua atoa siri za serikali. Unajua serikali ni siri kali. Siri kali.
Do you think they were so fair to him?
I don't think they were, but sasa Sonko is rich, he doesn't need that. Na bado anasaidia tu Mombasa, alienda akasaidia Conjestina, sasa Conjestina ni boss wake. And Kenya ilikuwa imeabandon Conjestina. You know that? Alienda akachukua Conjestina, akaenda akampeleka kwa rehab, akampeleka kwenye mental hospital. Conjestina kwa fit, Conjestina ni bodyguard wake. You see, that is empowering that woman, because Kenya after Conjestina akuja aenda apiganie Kenya ashinde, the moment that she alianza kuchizichizi, where they just abandoned her. But Sonko amemchukua, and other many people anawachukua, anawapeleka kwenye program fulani, wanakuwa poa, anawapea makazi. Empowering our heroes. Si ndio?
Yani Conjestina mmoja mwenye nilikuwa na grow nikijua aje. Na nikisikia niligrow tukicheza na jina yake, mimi nitakuwa kama Conjestina.
But I used to love Conjestina.
Guy,
I used to really love Conjestina, let me tell you. And ndio kitu moja ufanya mimi napenda Sonko. Sonko nishaona siku fulani amepatana na Madam Mombasa. Alikuwa ana drive gari usiku. Unajua most of the time he drives himself, yes? So ana drive gari usiku apatana na Madam, amebeba mtoto. Anatoka ferry. Okay, I don't know if you've been to Coast. Like anatembea from like Mwembe Tayari aende mpaka ferry. Somewhere like unachukua tuktuk unalipa 50 bob ama story, depend. Sawa? Like anatembea anamwambia, anamuuliza unatoka wapi sasa? Atatuambia tumetoka kuuza samaki na mtoto mdogo hivi. You know that video?
Na kampea that video. Hadi akauliza huyo mama aje, how are you sure that this kid is safe right now here at this late?
Akisema madama wale nitafanya aje na sina mtu wa kuachia na sina pesa hata nini, lazima nitoke na yeye nikanini na sina bwana alishaniacha. And that woman akaambiwa enda sasa tunajua nyumba zangu maliziko. Shika hii pesa, panda nini, chukua tuk nenda kwa nyumba zangu ndio waambie mimi nimewatuma upate kazi hapa kama ni ya kuosha vyombo. See, that is empowering. That is empowering. Those are the kind of leaders that we need. That's why tunasema let us listen to these people as we vet them, as they are being vetted, and let us see for real do they deserve those positions ama kukwaje, si ndio? Tunasema producer ameshapata hiyo ya nominee Liki Nyanjui.
Hebu tusikie kama hawa watu wanasema nini.
That notwithstanding, we will ask you every question that is relevant to establish your suitability or otherwise to hold this office. Start by, in 5 minutes or less, telling us your name, your educational background, your professional background, your work experience, any key competences in your life that make you feel and believe you are suitable for the role as cabinet secretary in the portfolio to which you have been nominated. Before you start, I invite Honorable Mishimbogo to go on record by introducing herself.
My apology, Honorable Chairman, I was praying. My name is Honorable Mishimboko, MP for Likoni, Mombasa County.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Allow me to take this opportunity first to express my gratitude for the opportunity to serve my country, or to be nominated to serve my country by the President. And I really want to say that I take this as a very solemn moment. We don't always get time to serve our country. So I come here in that context, and also wish to confirm that you have conferred me the title of CBS. I hold no such title. So thank you for that. Quickly going to myself, I want to say I'm a graduate of Kenyatta University, and I studied education, English and literature. I'm therefore a proud graduate of one of our local universities, and I say through my experience in Kenyatta University, I have come to see the value of education, especially education in our universities, that prepared us to meet and conquer the whole world. So I think that's about my study at the university. When I got to work, I have not worked for government for long. I taught briefly and then went to the corporate sector, where I worked in the oil industry before venturing into private business. In the year 2006, I vied in a by-election in Nakuru. I did not succeed, but the following year, which was a general election, I vied, succeeded, and was elected Member of Parliament for Nakuru Town. Then included East and West was one constituency. Further, in the Grand Coalition government, I was appointed the Assistant Minister for Roads, and I worked with the late Kipkalia Kones, and later with Franklin Bett and PS Michael Kamau, and together we worked very closely with the then President Mwai Kibaki in delivering the roads agenda that remains a huge legacy to date. During my time at the ministry, I attended many postgraduate trainings, including in PPPs, transport management, privatization and outsourcing, procurement, and many other areas relating to the docket that we are working. Mr. Chairman, allow me also to say that during our tenure, we undertook some of the biggest infrastructure projects that are seen to date, one of them being the Thika Road. Second one are the eastern bypasses that we see here today, and the others include the major road network connecting us to the neighboring countries, including Isiolo, Merile, going all the way to connect to Ethiopia. And I think the important part, Mr. Speaker, is that when I worked under the Ministry of Roads, we were actually looking at this docket from an infrastructure point of view. How do we connect with Uganda infrastructure-wise? How do we connect with Tanzania, with Ethiopia, and all these countries, and ensuring that there's smooth flow of goods and that our manufacturers have access to all those big markets, many of which do not have the advantage of manufacturing as we do have. Allow me, Mr. Chairman, to say that after I left Parliament, I was appointed the Chairman of the National Transport and Safety Authority, again within the broader sector of transport, where we undertook serious reforms, not just in safety, but in reforming the public transport sector. Noting that one of the biggest challenges we had then was congestion, especially in the urban areas, including Nairobi, and the need to encourage people to use public transport so that we can reduce the time wasted on the road because of congestion. And I'm happy much of that has borne fruit. The digitization, including the smart driving license, including other measures we brought during that time, remain alive to date, and I'm very proud of our time then. Mr. Chair, allow me also to comment that in the year 2017, I vied for Governor Nakuru, and we succeeded. And between the year 2017 and 2022, we were Governor Nakuru together with many others. I was not alone, including my deputy, Dr. Eric Korir. But I think what is most significant is that we made our contribution, and I am happy to note that Nakuru was voted best in healthcare in 2 consecutive years. We also had our town, Nakuru, elevated into a city in the year 2021. And in the same year, I was voted the most business-friendly governor in Africa. And we take pride in some of this because they inform why we are also seated here today. Between the year 2022 to date, I retreated to my private business, and had the opportunity to experience the country from the other side. And I say that because it is also important that when we discuss public policy, we also discuss it from where the public sees it. And I also had the opportunity to see how red tape affects business, how the cost of energy can hinder growth, and how taxation can impact businesses and hinder growth also. I also had experiences on how pending bills can bring businesses down, can impact on growth, and also how the management or mismanagement of politics can affect business across the country. So, Mr. Speaker, I say that I have sat both in Parliament, I've sat in the executive, I've also been at the county, and I've also sat on the Mwananchi bench. And therefore, coming into this conversation, we will be ready to work from all angles. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll invite the Deputy Speaker to be the first to ask a question.
Okay. Honorable Kenyanjui, I just have 3 related questions. One is that, as you know, in the past 10 years, the manufacturing sector in Kenya has remained stagnant at 11% of our GDP. If approved, what measures will you put in place to promote the growth of the local manufacturing sector? Also, there is the challenge of the influx of substandard counterfeit and contraband products into the local market through various border points, and this has reduced also the market share of locally manufactured goods. Again, I'd like to know the strategies that you'd put in place to curb that. Also, scrap metal industry in Kenya meets a huge demand in both the local and international markets, and it contributes to about 0.6% of Kenya's exports. If approved, what policies will you implement to ensure that this trade grows, but also strike a balance with safeguarding against vandalism? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Allow me to start by looking at the question of manufacturing in the lens of the sessional paper number 10 by the then Minister for Commerce, Dr. Gikonyo Kiano, in 1963, and the plan to make Kenya an industrial hub, encourage Africanization, and more importantly, protect our markets from external flooding by the developed and industrialized nations. But, Mr. Chairman, I want to confirm that in spite of that great dream, not much of it has been achieved. It is true that the contribution of manufacturing to GDP is in the range of about 7%, which remains low even compared to some of our neighbors within the broader Africa region. And therefore, Mr. Chairman, it will be important for us as we get into this critical office to look at the foundational causes of why manufacturing has remained low. And I want to start by saying the first one, I think, is our mindset. And I say this with the full knowledge that very few of our students will go to school in the hope of owning an industry one day. They can dream of anything else, but industry is not one of those things we have taught our people to imagine or think they would ever want to get into. So therefore, it will be important, first of all, to try and work on the psychology of our people to make them understand that where the money is not in the primary extraction, but in the value addition that we find in industry. Secondly, the issue and the cost of energy remains a big issue. We have the cost of energy being among the 4th most expensive in the whole of Africa, and therefore if we are producing to go and compete with other products from other parts of Africa, leave alone even other parts of the world, then we are already disadvantaged. Yet we know industries are heavy consumers of energy. We need to work closely together with the Ministry of Energy to find ways of reducing the costs. But I think more importantly, Mr. Chair, is to look at the elephant in the room, which is basically energy agreements that were signed a long time ago that continue to put our energy at extremely irrational levels, thereby making manufacturing in Kenya very difficult. We are aware that there are some companies that have moved to other countries where the cost of energy is lower, and therefore I don't think it is a matter that we would want to postpone, because it's very urgent. And most of the young people whom we see out there who are restless, most of them have done courses that would be absorbed in these industries. So as long as the industries are not growing at the level that we would want, then we are likely to continue experiencing this. Then lastly, our trade agreements and other engagements with partners, which means that through the EAC, through other multilateral agreements, sometimes we have ended up getting the last side of the agreement, meaning therefore we don't protect our industries. There's flooding, and that has been a major challenge that has seen most of our industries wiped out. Allow me also to say, closely related to this, is that we have not been able to come to the aid of our factories and industries when they're in problems. And therefore, you find that some of them go through foreclosure and others. Yet, there are many other situations across the world when companies are facing financial constraints, including GM in the US in the year 2008. The government came and saved them. Today, it remains a very big company to date. But we have had some of our bright companies, whenever they fall into trouble, they go into foreclosure, and it becomes very difficult to revive them in future. Therefore, I also want to take this opportunity to ask the House to consider how we can be able to protect our industries, because once they go down, coming up is impossible. And a good example is Kenatco, which is over 20 years into receivership. Allow me to mention also on the issue of counterfeits. Yes, it is true that a lot of them manufacturers face the serious problem of having other people manufacture using their brands without their knowledge, and therefore diluting the investment of the original investors. I think there is an already existing authority that takes care of this, and I think our work will be to work together with other state agencies, including enforcement, to ensure that it does not continue to affect our industries adversely. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, is the issue of scrap metal and how we can ensure that our exports are supported. I want to say that any country that exports scrap metal should really reconsider its policies. How can you export scrap metal instead of just melting it and making it, iron bars for construction and all that? So the idea of exporting scrap metal is a suicide note for a country that seeks to industrialize itself. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Majority.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And may also note, Honourable Speaker, that I've known the Honourable Kinyanjui for quite some time, since he was a member of Parliament, and he's been a friend. That will not deter me from vetting him. And CS nominee, I want to know, from where I sit, we see a lot of disharmony, or there being lack of harmonization of what is seen to be government policy in the Ministry, especially of Industry, and what happens in practice. And because we seem to be having a protectionist policy in the Ministry, especially around local manufacturers. And I have in mind the specific case of the steel and cement industries, where policy has been seen to be protecting local manufacturers, those who have invested heavily in the industry. But at the same time, in practice, the ministry also proposes certain other legislative measures that negate the policies that you espouse. What do you intend to do, should you be approved, to harmonize both policy and legislation? And I say that because specifically on cement and steel. For instance, we want to encourage the growth of local industry in the steel sector with heavy investments by particular players in the country. But legislation then comes to Parliament that in a way is also killing small industrialists. And you find that you are protecting the very big industrial setups, but also killing cottage industries. Look at the people who are smelting the scrap metal you're talking about, and those who are processing iron ore to steel. Look at those who are manufacturing mabati, iron sheets, and wire rods, and the legislation around it, and what the ministry espouses as government policy. I therefore just want to hear what your views are on a protectionist policy in government of industry, vis-a-vis the encouragement of young and nascent cottage industries in the country. Because big industries just create jobs, but also the cottage industries probably create much more jobs than those big, very big mega industries. Just your views on that, CS nominee, and how you will harmonize both policy and legislation.
Jeanette, Lee will take several so that you can answer them together. Jeanette, you will skip Posing.
Thank you, Chairman. Honorable Chairman, there's something notable about nominees from Nakuru which I want to bring to the attention of the nominee. We have vetted 3 people from, this is the 3rd person from Nakuru, Honorable Chairman. We are vetting in less than 2 years, or 2 years exactly. And at the moment we vet somebody, and I want the Honorable Lee Kinyanjui to know this, when we finish vetting that person, we approve. Then 1 month down the line, if you ask who is the Minister for ICT, nobody remembered her. I'm telling you. Nobody even remembered whether there was a Minister of ICT. Then the first man who went to lunch, there was a problem. So, Honorable Kinyanjui, are you going to be part of the same? Was that a fate? But my question is, Honorable Kinyanjui, this idea of economic zones has been criticized by some critics and given a proposal, which I want to know what is your thinking about it. They are saying, rather than having those economic zones in counties, that you, as a minister now coming for industrialization, that you don't focus on that. What you do, you focus on economic niche of counties. Fund some budget for specific counties and develop that economic niche. And they give examples, like, for example, in Turkana, there's oil. So if there was money, you develop that economic niche for Turkana, we'll develop a country from that point, and it will actually contribute to our economy. West Pokot is mining. I can assure you that. There's a lot of minerals in West Pokot. So rather than doing these economic zones, why don't you find money and develop that economic niche? Tourism, Narok, and then also maize in, for example, Kitale. What do you think about people who think like that, rather than just having these white elephants, in my view, called economic zones without actual economy? Thank you, Chairman.
Honorable Lee, as a student of literature, you've always expressed that literature on your online platform, and most of it actually fairly has been, in the last few months, has been very critical on this administration. Number 2, your party Ubuntu had its manifesto. Now you're joining, assuming this committee approves you, you will be joining the Kenya Kwanza government, which has also its manifesto. How do you want to use, how do you think you will work with this administration, considering that you've been extremely critical of this administration and its policies, and now you have to sit with the same teams that you've criticized and used words against? Thank you.
Chairman, I don't have any question.
Okay.
I just want to assure Posing that the fears of Nakuru now will be sorted. I hope that the positive development...
Lee, you can proceed to answer questions. Posing is not being vetted here.
So thank you, Chair. Allow me to start with the Honorable Koech and to say that I have used my knowledge sometimes to be critical of the administration, but I also want to correct. There's a difference between being critical of policies and being critical of a government. If, for example, we say pending bills are affecting businesses, that is not an affront on a government. It is a plea from the business community to try and ease cash flows so that businesses don't fail. If we say taxation beyond a certain point can stifle growth, that is not criticism. It is actually positive criticism. So that if you take it, then everybody is a winner, from the government to the citizens and all that. And I think it's really important for us to also embrace that even when you're in office, including myself, it is not possible that I'm the only one with ideas. There'll be people from out there who will think I can do something better. And the right thing is to give them that avenue. And possibly, if they have better ideas than myself, also to listen to them. And I think, personally, I consider that as my role as a patriotic citizen. Whenever I see something that I think is not right, to raise it, and possibly hope that the policy makers, whether in parliament or in the executive, can also take it up. With respect to a political party, it is true I have formally resigned from Ubuntu, but my heart is also very connected to the Ubuntu philosophy, which simply talks about I am because you are. And therefore also in government, whatever policies we make must not just be about me, myself, and I. There is a bigger community beyond yourself. And I think really this is what we need to really get out there. When you see poverty out there, it's not something we can ignore. And I think the opportunity to work in government also means my thoughts, I will share them to colleagues through parliament, also to the president, and give the best advice that I consider necessary for the country. The Honorable Kosing, he has said that nominations from Nakuru, I am not aware. I still remember those two gentlemen. I'm not the appointing authority, and therefore would hate to discuss them in their absence.
Chairman, was it gentlemen?
And a lady. You don't know your citizens in your former jurisdiction.
Gentleman and lady.
Yes.
And I think maybe also what is important is that even when a new person like myself comes, it's not a very good tradition to belittle anybody else who's been there before you. I think acknowledge whatever contribution they've made, whether big or small.
Actually, it was just a preamble to a question. Don't belabor that. Answer the
well said.
The relevant
With respect
question.
To the economic zones, I think every county has a story. If you go to Pokot, you know, I mean, the situation will be very different from Mombasa. If you go to Makueni compared to Nakuru, therefore, to make a generic template for all the counties may not be right. And I think, therefore, some of the considerations we need to make is to look at the economic opportunities existing at every place and ensuring that the economic zones we are creating are responsive to the needs of that particular place. For example, in the pastoralist areas, the issue of beef and cattle and lamb is really in huge demand, especially in the Middle East. So we don't need to go competing with other places that could do horticulture. So how can we empower areas like Isiolo and some of those places, Kajiado, Samburu, and the other places, so that they become our best practice examples when it comes to bee farming and these other things. So I think it is true that there's a need to rationalize, and I think more importantly also, is to, some of these counties are very close to each other. So sometimes to have sufficient raw materials to run all these economic zones may be a challenge in future. Therefore, the need to rationalize and also ensure that we prepare the public. The issue of it turning out to be white elephant is not particularly new in Kenya, where government invests millions and millions of shillings, and I've seen it even when I was in infrastructure. We are told at a certain point there are very many accidents. We go and budget for a footbridge, and nobody ever uses that footbridge, in spite of all the money being pumped there. So there's a need for us to educate the public, in this case, the investors, so that they know what is coming up, where there are challenges of funding. We can look for linkages with banks, including banks that are funded by government, to ensure that there's a close-knit loop. And I think that should be going on now, so that by the time these special economic zones are complete, then you have uptick. And I also want to say that sometimes you have these special economic zones, they are here, but the investments by the local, the indigenous Kenyans, has remained low. So we want to see locals also take advantage of these existing facilities. And lastly, to also confirm that in the past, we have had some of these allocations to companies or persons who are not serious to take up these opportunities. And therefore, they are purely there for speculation. Maybe it's an area within the allocation team that we must make sure that those who are given the opportunity indeed are ready to hit the road running. Lastly, the majority leader, the Honorable Ishungwa, talked about disharmony in government policy. And I don't think this is a light matter, because on one hand, we've been trying to discourage imports. And I want to give the example of the import duty that had been slapped of about 1.5% on luxurious goods, some of those things that we didn't require. But it was removed. So on one side, we say we are protecting, but when you go to our supermarkets, 80% of the things come from outside, including toothpicks. So that is not consistent with a nation that says they want to industrialize. So I think there's a need both for government, the legislation, and also the national intelligence, because part of this legislation we pass has very serious impact on the nation's economic outlook. We are talking of a balance of payment deficit that is growing by the year. So for us to be able to overcome this, it will be extremely important that we harmonize our approach and ensure that everybody understands the implication of every single policy that we put and what it means to the larger national interest. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
I forgot to mention on cement, which I think is also a big issue. The President has pronounced himself on the issue of affordable housing, and it is obvious that affordable housing cannot be restricted only to the government projects. It also means that if I want to build myself a house, it is within the affordable agenda platform. But the cost of cement and steel has gone up by approximately around 30% in the last 2 years. And I think that can be attributed to some of the monopolistic regulations that were brought during the same period. And therefore, once vetted and finally approved, our first duty will be to try and get up a team to interrogate the impact of some of these policies and whether they are for the benefit of the country or they are reversal to the gains that we already had. The issue of cartels within the industry is also very important, and again there has been mention of quality, and therefore KEBS and other regulatory agencies will be empowered to ensure that indeed we live up to our duty. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, if you allow me, just one follow-up question in relation to that, the same question I'd asked. Because CS nominee, what I would really want to hear, 20 years ago, the Kenyan state was the leader in manufacturing in the region. As of 2023, statistics are showing us that Uganda has now overtaken Kenya. The contribution to our GDP of manufacturing in Uganda is, as of 2023, was at 15.65%, while Kenyans has stagnated at about 7.6% as of 2023. And 20 years ago, Ugandans, Tanzanians, Burundians, Rwandese, all the way to Congo, people are importing things from Kenya. What is it that you intend to do as a Minister for Trade and Industry to get us back to where we were at least 20 years ago, if not anything else? Because, and I agree with you, it is these protectionist policies that in a way are negating those gains. If you go to Uganda, it's not very big mega industries that are growing that contribution of manufacturing to GDP. It's small industries. But those are the small industries we are killing in Kenya. What will you specifically do to ensure that as you harmonize policies and legislation, you also encourage small cottage industries to grow in the country and take us back to that position where we were the leader in the region?
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to build on to what Majority Leader said, nominee, it's not just about aligning Kenya's trade and industrial policies to the legislation. It's also about aligning all that to sustainable
development goals, because that is what will guarantee that we continue to industrialize, that these industries continue to thrive and grow and expand. So those specific initiatives or plans or action plans that you intend to undertake, I think that's what we want to hear from you.
And maybe to guide you, CS Nominee, for instance, we are signatories, and I see you are a consultant with the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. And having been a consultant, I don't know whether you still continue working as a consultant, but this African Continental Free Trade Agreement allows free access to markets of countries that have are signatories to this agreement, from Southern Africa, East and Central Africa. But then again, locally, we are signatories to that agreement, but then we have policies again that are negating the provisions of that agreement in terms of restricting the free entry of raw materials especially. And I have a case in mind of those two industries that I mentioned, clinker in cement and billets, steel billets. Because we pretend to be manufacturing those billets here and producing our own clinker, yet we are importing coal. And therefore, probably the inputs that we need for production of that clinker becomes very expensive. And that's how you find that cement, the prices are almost 1.5 times as what they ought to be. And therefore, I don't know what you will do, but really it is something that needs someone who will be very bold to confront all the players and be able to have a very balanced program of how you balance those trade agreements, the growth of our cottage industries, and protection of big industry.
Lee will take the Deputy Speaker.
Yes, mine is brief, just to as a follow-up question. The cost of clinker has significantly increased because there's been a big excise duty loaded onto imported clinker. So you've alluded to the cost of cement, and that is something that's been done in the last few years. So what are you going to do? Because the only way to bring down the cost of cement is not to load excessive excise duty on imported clinker. Because the clinker, we can't produce all the clinker in Kenya. I think 85% of the cement component is clinker. What are you going to do about it? Because that's the biggest challenge facing the building industry, and that's squarely in the hands of your ministry that you're nominated for.
Thank you, Dawood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, to the nominee, he's been a former governor of Nakuru, and myself, I'm the patron for street families in Meru for the last 20 years. Can the nominee confirm, during his tenure as the governor for Nakuru, he picked up all the street families, street boys and girls, put them in a truck and went and threw them in a forest? That's an allegation which he would need to confirm. Secondly, I would want to ask the nominee, because he's going to, the manufacturing sector has remained stagnant for many years. It contributes 11% of the GDP. What measures would you take to promote the local manufacturing industry, because they are the backbone of this of country, in the sense that they can contribute more than what they have. The last one is domestic investors in the recent past have not given prominence as opposed to foreign investors, because foreign investors come, they get many incentives, tax incentives and other incentives, which are not available to our domestic investors. If you do get approved, how are you going to assist our domestic investors gain a foothold, because they do not have a foothold in this trade in the country? Thank you, Chair.
Can you answer those?
Thank you, Chair. I wish to start with the Honorable Majority Leader.
Chairman, not Chair.
Thank you. With respect
I'm sitting on a chair, but I'm the chairman.
It's been long. I stand corrected.
Go ahead.
I wanted to respond. The issue of the contribution of industry to GDP has declined. But the truth also is that from independence to date, our economy has diversified. There are many things that were not there. For example, Kenya is among the top in geothermal in the world. Actually, in Africa, we are a case study. Sometimes when you're looking at industries, we don't see that as an industry. If you look at the flower export business, that's a whole industry unto itself. We are probably the fourth and the best in the whole of Africa. So sometimes when you're defining industry, we are defining it from the way we knew it then. But industry is very dynamic. Even the M-Pesa platform, it in itself is a whole industry, financial industry, that has completely reconfigured our economy. So I think as we move forward, and the banking industry, Kenya is not just an economy to itself. I mean, all these regional countries look up to Kenya. So I think sometimes when we say that our contribution has gone lower, it sometimes is taken to mean like we are stagnating. It is not entirely true. Actually, we are diversifying.
The members are talking about the prism of manufacturing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm also calling upon us to see manufacturing in the broader context.
Yeah, actually, I would like to comment about the manufacturing, and I want to echo what the Emir has said. Personally, I was doing manufacturing industry. I was doing manufacturing of vehicles, and we had to close down. And if you go to industrial area today, you'll find that all the godowns are closed down. So I think it's good to accept that there's a problem, and then we sit down, we involve all the stakeholders, and then we see what we can do so that we can now open those industries.
Go on. That's a personal testimony.
Thank you, and I appreciate.
Yes.
So I think the point is, do we have a problem with the growth of industry? I said where we started in the year 1963 and the sessional paper, and where we ought to be today, there is a clear challenge. The issue is how we can unlock that challenge. One of them, I said, was the cost of energy. The other issue is also getting into agreements that allow flooding of goods into the country, thereby disadvantaging our local people. The issue of taxation sometimes, without looking at the broader impact of that on the industry, becomes another bigger problem. I also wish to cite the issue of financing. If anybody wants to start an industry today and you go to a normal commercial bank, the period they give you is normally not more than 10 years. At an interest rate of 18%, you cannot survive. Again, we do not have banks that are aligned to industry, ones that appreciate the whole value chain of industry that can help our local manufacturers to work together. And therefore, I invite the members as we try and reconfigure how we can move from here forward and encouraging local investors, those who are there to see how they can grow, and I think also more importantly, encouraging the younger ones. The majority leader also talked about the cottage industries. I think sometimes we overfocus on the big bulk industries. But the truth is, if you go to every village, the potential to have small industries that can employ 10, 20 people, get the raw materials from the village, becomes a big issue, partly because of employment in the rural areas. And you do not want a situation where everybody has to leave the rural areas to come to town to find labor. So we'll also try and look at how we can be able to encourage cottage industries all the way down into the rural spaces. Then on the issue of sustainable industrial growth, I think it's also very important that we don't just seek to have industries that will come, create jobs for 1, 2, 3 years, and then from there, they are gone. And I think looking at Kenya's position with respect to sustainability, especially on energy, we have a big step that we've already made. But I think there are critical decisions that need to be made with respect to energy that would help us to overcome. The Deputy Speaker has mentioned the issue of clinker and companies that have now to import clinker at a higher level, which means some of them are actually on the verge of closing. I think sometimes when some of this legislation comes, it would be wise to give the industry time, in which case you say within the next 3 years, everybody should invest in clinker mining. so that if you're a local company and you know between now and then the duty will import duty will continuously go up by 5% or 10%, then it means you have to look for alternatives, and government can give them time. But some of these drastic decisions will send our local companies to the gallows. And if you look at the exports to our neighboring countries, without mentioning, cement is one of the big commodities that we are exporting, including steel. So when you come and also extinguish our companies here, we are also shooting ourselves within the regional export market. The Honorable Dawood has mentioned street children were rounded, don't know, taken somewhere. I think it is good to say that even if they are street children...
It was alleged.
Alleged.
You remember, Lee?
Yes, it was.
That in an attempt to make Nakuru attractive and make it a city, you picked street children, some street families, put them on the trucks, and went and dumped them in Embobot Forest. That was it. I'm saying, let me finish. Because you remember this matter came up in the Senate?
Yes.
And Embobot Forest was said to be infested with hyenas and other dangerous wild animals, and some of those children were never found.
Mr. Speaker, it is extremely wrong.
I have used the word very advisedly, alleged.
I also have many allegations about everybody else. So if it's about allegations, I think we can also come up with allegations. But
I advise you not to lose your cool. Just answer questions.
It's about my integrity.
The way they are asked.
We also have allegations, if it's about allegations.
Just answer questions the way they're asked. That's what Dawood asked. And I was making it clear to you because you remember this matter was in the House of Senate for quite some time. So go ahead and answer. If it is not true, even no is an answer.
Even me, I said alleged. I didn't say he has done it.
If you lose your cool, you will be unable to answer the next questions.
I have faced worse situations, but I just wanted to say I have my conscience, right? I can never do that. And the unfortunate thing, including at the Senate is politicians who are there. And the people who are sponsoring it today, you know, I think let's also be fair. You can't call a governor to come and answer to allegations put by their opponent who have intentions to go to an elective position, and then use that allegation later against him. If there are people, this country has the best intelligence in the region. We have never said even one name. You know, so I think let us also respect the institutions we work for. And I would say for Kenya and for posterity, the opportunity to serve in these institutions should not be personalized for gain. Because I was there, Mr. Speaker, you know, throughout that period. How come only those people are known by politicians? Which family has ever come out? So I think it's good to be fair and also respect the positions we have. So in short, Bwana Dawood, that is an act of fiction.
Bwana Chairman, I don't have any interest in Nakuru. So I'm not a politician from Nakuru. It is alleged, that's what I said. We wanted a clarification. Governor should not feel offended. Should not
Don't
feel
apologize. Lee, you know, an opportunity like this is very good for you to clear some of those things, not to feel slighted, because nobody is slighting you. You're being asked questions in good faith.
Well taken, Speaker.
Yes, Ferdinand?
He has not finished. No, he has finished.
Mr. Speaker, there was a secondary question.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
There was a secondary question
from Dawood.
From Dawood. With respect to local investors feeling slighted, and sometimes when you talk about investment, we are largely perceived to be talking about foreign investors. And I think I want to identify with that. There was a situation where some local investors were looking for an appointment with an office, a big office in government, in the county governments, and they kept on looking for that appointment for 6 months, until one day they changed and said they are from another country. They got the appointment the following day. So I think we must agree. The first investors must be you and I. the people who live here in Kenya. And even if the foreigners are to come here, they will make a call to those who are already here. So good referrals mean everything. So Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, I want to agree with Dawood that a lot must be done to encourage local investment. And maybe while still on the issue of local investment, allow me to say that there's a marked difference between the attitude of Kenyans about Kenya and the attitude of foreigners about Kenya. And I think this speaks a lot to what he's saying. If you look at the investments that have happened in the country in the last 3-4 years, from GTC here in Nairobi to other major foreign direct investments coming here, it is huge, and it is a testament of the confidence in largely the country and the region, for that matter. But sometimes Kenyans are also caught up in a web of negativity. So foreigners will see what we can't see. So we need to come up together. The jobs that are being created are for us. And if the owners of the country think different from foreigners, then before long, they will come and invest everything, and we'll have nowhere to go because of our attitude. So one of the areas I wish to engage in, further to what the Honorable Dawood has said, is to also engage in the attitudes. And maybe also to request Kenyans, when you're looking at your country, don't look at it in the lenses of your politicians. This is your country. You can change your MP, you can change your MCA.
Point of order, Honorable Chairman. Honorable Chairman, this word of politicians has been repeated severally. And for us, we are leaders and we are also politicians. So does it mean that if somebody is a politician, cannot give any views or ask questions, and whether he does it, it is wrong or it is witch hunting? We need some elaboration on that.
Honorable, proceed on the basis that a politician is not necessarily an irrational person. Irrational people are found everywhere, even out, and you're a politician too.
Yeah.
We were with you in the House. You became governor. Take it in that stride. That avoid unhelpful mentioning of politician. Just answer questions.
Mr. Chairman, maybe I can withdraw the term politician, but I meant that, you know, Kenya, if everybody out there sees the good of Kenya and the best of Kenya, let me not allow myself, if somebody has a different view, to change me. I think that's all I'm trying to say. And this is our country.
Ferdinand?
Yeah, I'm enjoying the presentation. Now,
then give it to Morgana so that you continue enjoying.
Let me get to specifically what I want him to answer. I think this challenge facing our Kenya's export. Sometimes back, and I was a regional sales and marketing manager of those 13 countries. You would go to Middle East and had milk from Kenya. Today you go to Middle East, there's no milk at all. From Kenya, you'd rather have it, you find it from Uganda and other places. Secondly, there was also a program where you had this pachuma. Stock keeping, the animals were being kept in pachuma grounds for export trade, for export to Middle East, and I think to islands like Seychelles, Mauritius, and even Madagascar. I don't know what programs you're going to have to revive this, because it's a part of the trade that we had in the region. And I can tell you there was a lot of eagerness, because I went around to those places, in importing, or rather exportation of livestock from Kenya. And Pachuma ground is still, in the coast is still actually there. And if you work to the Ministry of Agriculture, you do a lot of exportation from there. What programs would you have? What would you do to be able to revive this? Thank you.
George Murugara, you'll pass. Owen Bayer.
A quick question, Honorable Speaker, to the nominee. There is information that many factories or manufacturers are leaving the country. Okay, a lot of information now is that. Why do you think they are leaving the country? And what would be your plan to retain them in the country so that we can increase opportunities for young people, create more jobs, and also increase our GDP? The second one KEBS, Kenya Bureau of Standards, is squarely in trade. There's also another organization called Anti-Counterfeit Authority, also there. Why do we have issues of products that come into the country, still counterfeit, still fakes, and still substandard goods that are denting Kenya's image? Thank you.
Yes, Robert?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree with some of my colleagues, or a number of my colleagues, that many companies have closed down and moved their manufacturing out of the country. And I'm happy because I've heard you, enumerate some of the reasons why. One of them, which I want to add, is obviously the harsh business environment caused by the harsh taxation regime, and sometimes even the unpredictability of our tax policy. Maybe those are some of the things you'd like to look at. But I want to go to that issue we've just been talking about of a politician. You are a politician, so are we, all of us here. And politicians many times focus on the next election. I'm aware you are governor of Nakuru, and you didn't complete the 2 terms. So there is a possibility you might be interested in that seat again. Now, can you give Kenyans an assurance that as CS, you will not spend your time in Nakuru County campaigning for 2027 at the expense of serving Kenyans?
Mule.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the nominee, Honorable Lee. Kenya recently ratified the EU-Kenya Economic Partnership Agreement, which seeks to create and enhance market access to Kenyans' exports to European Union. I want to hear from you, what will you leverage on this agreement so that we can protect the local markets and also increase our exports to increase our revenues from the European Union. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, Kenya is also in bilateral agreements with major partners like US, whereby the United States, through AGOA, is coming to collapse, actually to be precise, September this year. And you know the relationship between Kenya trade and the US is quite massive. As a minister, coming, if approved, to come to this space, what will you tell Kenyans on their face who have been benefiting from business between US and Kenya, and what should we expect from it? Lastly, but not least, Mr. Speaker, is a question from public, whereby when you are the governor for Nakuru, we had the tragedy of Solai Dam. And it really exposed, and we lost Kenyans on that. And a report was done, and a criminal negligence on duty by officers in Nakuru County was placed on them, as you are the governor there. What measures did you do? What response can you tell Kenyans? Are you going to be responsible with our trade, and it gets to the same strategies in this country? It is unfortunate, but what measures did you take to make sure that people were brought to book, and at least the county government, did they compensate those people? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mukami? We'll take some more.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to ask our nominee the strategies he is intending to employ to boost the businesses of small-scale traders. Honorable Speaker, if you go to Kirinyaga Road, Nyamakima, majority of the small traders have closed down. I would really like to know, I would really like to hear from him what he's going to do so that we can bring those young people back to their businesses. The other question, it's in your view, what are the challenges that negatively affect the growth of exports, and what should be done to improve the visibility of Kenyan export in international market? Thank you.
Yes, Lee, you can answer those.
Thank you, Chairman. Allow me to start with the last question by the Honorable Member of Parliament for Nyeri. The issue of small-scale business people, I think, is a huge concern, both in Nyamakema and across all our urban areas. And I think, as I mentioned there earlier, the issue of cash squeeze, where a lot of suppliers have not been paid by government, affects the cash in circulation. And because most of them sell consumables or those things you buy on the go, then it means when people do not have money, then that affects. So one of the areas I hope to be working together with the cabinet and the cabinet together with the CS for finance is to be the champion for paying all suppliers in government. If that money was to hit the accounts of the suppliers, there will be an immediate party in all these places we are talking about. People who are about to face foreclosure will be saved. So, and when the money is in circulation, there's more trade, there's more tax, everybody benefits. So I think we need to agree that, again, the other issue is for banks, because it is very lucrative to put their money in treasury bills and treasury bonds. They don't want to lend to the small people. So again, there's no money in circulation. So let's agree that the small business people are suffering from the cash squeeze that is currently there. And everything must be done, even also by this house, to help us unlock that challenge so that we can give hope. On the issue of funding, I would strongly recommend that we need to find a sustainable way of funding our small businesses, although it is also not right to call them small. People tend to live up to the titles they are given. So I think we need to find a better way of calling them, because it's like confining them to the smallness in which they are. But in short, government must come up with a way, or even if it means the commercial banks must set aside a certain percentage of their money for a certain category of industries and so on, that can help us avail cash flow to the businesses. And the honorable member has also asked about growth of export and the hindrance. I think our first biggest export is tea, and I think we've been doing fairly well in spite of the current challenges. But more importantly, also in the area of horticulture and flowers. And I think the biggest challenge you're having there is the availability of air freight, because most of these fresh...
Yes, Zulfa.
Yes. So we've had everything that Mr. Lee Kinyanjui anataka kuwa nominated minister as cabinet secretary for trade and industry, yes? Tukasikiza vizuri pale points zake, akaongelelea all the plans that he has for Kenya and for that position, yes? Hata mi pale wamenigusa, and I don't want to go to negative stuff. Pale ambayo wamenigusa ni apparently at the kuna wakati kwa see something in Nakuru. And in the process of beautifying Nakuru, he picked up the street children and families and threw them to Embu Boot Forest. And some of those children who are thrown there and families are never seen up to today. Na pale kidogo akataka ku lose temper. What do you think about that?
Okay, mi ile kitu yenye imeniguza kutokana na hiyo story ni kwa sababu unajua yule MP aliongea with a lot of emotions and truly hadi mtu unaweza feel like ni kama ni family, ni kama ni familia yake ilifanya nini, ilikuwa affected. But that thing is not good at all.
Like if it happened?
Yeah, sure.
If it happened, that is not good. Naona pale Peter Kimani amesema good morning Zulfa and Felix, hope mko poa. Welcome back Felix. Anasema pia
thank you so much Peter, wherever you are. I really appreciate.
Yes. Then anasema Lee Kinyanjui is not a joke. He doesn't take nonsense. Remember he told Weta that he also have some allegation against everyone there, including Weta. They had to kill him down. It could have gotten messy. I don't get why mbona amejama. Kusema swali, if you know you have not done it, I don't know why you're getting so upset. Sawa, like you should just answer it calmly, because obviously people will come at you with vitu ambazo ulifanyaga in 1930 because of that position. You should be prepared. Angekuwa tunajua obviously hilo swali litakuja au
unajua mimi kitu yenye linibamba ni vile ali respond. Unaona vile alijibu. Hiyo ndio ilinifurahisha.
Walisema hata mimi niko na nini za watu wengine.
Hata
mimi niko na evidence ya watu wengine.
Lakini Zulfa, do you think hiyo ni ukweli?
Mimi simjui. I don't know.
From the look
at this point, let me tell you, at this point I will not believe any politician. Any politician, I am not believing them, because these people are always pretending to be for Kenya, but the moment that they get wanaingia kwenye hicho kiti, they forget about Kenya. They think about their pockets, they think about how they can expand their businesses. In fact, I think the only person I listen to is Gachagua kidogo, and not like namtrust completely. I just listen to him because at least yeye ana keep hiyo integrity na kona discipline fulani. I will talk the truth no matter what comes to me.
Lakini sasa hii story ya kwenda kutupa watu msituni, mbona hatukuisikia? Ama mimi ndio nilikuwa nimelalia masikio?
Story ya nini?
Our street children and street families.
No, it was a thing that really it was a thing that ikaaga sana. Like, it was a shock. Isipokuwa pia nasema that story was cooked by a political class senator. We will never know if it is true or not, because sasa unajua sasa we don't know the families. Unajua sasa ujui yote ambaye alirushago huko. Ndio uende ukamuulize, did this really happen? Let me tell you, kama I say back it is a cooked story. How do you expect me to believe these people? Kama hata cook kitu kama, if it is cooked, because I don't know if it is true or not. If it is cooked, how do you expect me to believe watu ambao wana cook vitu za hiyo aina? No one is really for Kenya at this moment. No one at all. So what is your take as we tukona roughly tuweke pia nini vetting, because today is only about vetting. Want people to listen. Taki tuongee sana hapa kuhusu vetting ya politician and people don't even know about the vetting. So kama tunaweza eka ya Mutai Kagwe, Mr. Producer, we could really be happy. Tukieka vetting ya Mutai Kagwe.
Anyway, hiyo story ya kuenda kurusha watu kwa msitu, because you want to make
Nakuru beautiful,
clean.
You know,
uliona lakini vile wale ma DCI waliletwa mbio na crowd. Wale wenye walikuwa wanataka kuenda kuchukua mtu.
Yes.
Wakashikwa, wakapatiwa kabit fulani. Kwanza kuna mama fulani huko alinifurahisha.
Ule madam mzee mkongwe ile mpiga kofi. Yes, you know that madam, watu walikuwa wanaogopa kukaribia. If you saw, watu walikuwa wako hapo kando. And that madam alikuja and she was like, alikuwa hapo. Akaingia akamfuata, akakuja akampiga kofi. Actually, you should really look for that video, because people really need to see how that madam, that video yani inafanya nakuwa na hope kidogo with the Gen Zs, not the me. In fact, the moment I just see a politician just speaking, I'm like, we're bonga to man. Because let me tell you, Felix, no one is actually really for Kenya right now. People are kopale for their, because when you see, and as I continue to say, when you see people like that nani aitwaje yule mtu ambaye alitusi wa mama, and there were women reps there, president alikuwa pale, you know, are those people really for Kenya? Ama they are for their like wewe sema kitu tunasema, because no. So tuangalie vetting leo. I don't even want to talk too much, just tuangalie tu vetting tujue. But if that story is really true, Peter anasema it was wrong to ask him such questions when Weta knows it was allegations cooked by a senator who wanted to be governor. But I think, Peter, he should be asked that question to clarify. Haifai kubaki ni story ambayo ati amtaki kuiongelelea. He should clarify, because kama kuna watu ambao wanamchukulia kama mtu ambaye alirusha watoto na familia homeless in the Embu forest, yes, then itakuwa tu reputation tu yake, you know. So wacha aulizwe, a clarify it. Ask those tough questions, ndio uzijibu sahi, ndio we move on from that. Do maybe has he ever like really spoken about it? Wacha ulizwe, ndo aji-redeem out of that thing. Ndo isibakingi mulieka mtu, because maybe there are people who believed that story, you know? Sawa? Maybe there are people who believed that story, and they will always view Bwana Lee Kinyanjui as the person who threw families kwa forest. But the moment that he is asked that question and he answers that question, then I think that is good. Yes, yes, Felix.
Lazima mtu ulize swali. Najua kitu kama hiyo si kitu rahisi. Mwanadamu kwenda kupelekea mafisi mwanadamu eti waenda kutafuna it really, yani in a disguise bad sana. It really hurts, so see. So Peter, please, I think kuulizwa hilo swali sidhani kama ni makosa, but the real reason ya kuuliza swali kama hilo ni kujaribu kuclarify
aseme mwenyewe.
Yes,
yani is like Wetangula wanted him to like, so wasema ni marafiki tangu kitambo, like kuna watu ambao wata believe your story, Peter. Now if you're not asked, if you're not given the chance to like really talk about it, you may believe Peter Peter and Felix, you know, and every other, I believe that niulize that, don't usisikie story, usikie Zulfa alifanya hivi, usiogope kuja kuniuliza. Ask me, even if unadhani it's a very difficult question aje, niulize, let me clarify, do not judge me. Wacha usisikie story, just kuna mtu ambaye atasikia hiyo swali imeulizwa hapo na hata like ashamchukuliaga hivyo. Liwanjui Kinyanjui alirusha watu kwa forest, and that is that. But the moment he is asked that question and he replies it and he justifies himself and he clears that rumor, then story naishi hapo. At least now people hear from his perspective, so it's not from the perspective of the other person who wanted to become the governor. So yes. I think it's good that he was asked that question, and he should have been actually really prepared to be asked that question. So people, no single family member showed up to talk about it, or their children. So no one really came to report it, and where did it come from? And then like how? Then Kim, but the guy has really performed in Akuru. Is a son of Moy. Losing his school should be part of him. No, I think I mean ama unaona aje ni Felix angekuwa ameshajitayarisha kuulizwa swali kama hilo.
Yes,
even to be asked the worst of worst questions. I think the moment that you go to sit there on that seat, unajua you're being vetted, unafaa kuwa ready, like you should be ready for any question kabisa, hata ile yenye hatutaki kuulizwa ama yenye unajua it will ni. I'm like, you just but maybe that's me. I'm always ready for any question that you want to ask. I don't have kuniuliza swali gani, I will answer it very calmly. I will come to jam baadaye after ushainizo swali. So yes, Felix, tumepata hiyo vida ya Mr. nani? Mr. Mutai Kagwez.
Hebu tusikie anasema nini.
Okay.
My capacity to question him on his suitability for the job for which he has been nominated. Thank you. Now, Honorable Mutai Kagwe, in less than 5 minutes, tell this committee who you are, your background, your education, and why you think you are suitable to hold office for which you have been nominated.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the nominating committee. First and foremost, before I start, Mr. Chairman, let me just say that I want to say thank you. First, I would like to say thank you to God indeed, because that is why He is why we are here today. Secondly, I wish to take this opportunity to thank His Excellency, the President, for this appointment or nomination, which I hope will be approved by this committee. Thirdly, Mr. Chairman, I very briefly will say that, as I said, my name is Mutahi Kagwe. I was born in Nyeri County. And Mr. Chairman, if you allow, as I go along, I will give the reasons. I will tie up the reasons why I think I'm suitable for this job with my background. I went to primary school in a rural school in Nyeri, and I think that is where I started the journey to this discussion here today. Most of you will remember that in primary schools, or some of you will remember that in primary schools, we used to have what was called the 4K Club. The 4K Club is where we started our farming. Some of us went there. And Mr. Chairman, if you remember, the 4K clubs introduced us to agriculture. And that's why I picked my talent of planting trees and so on. Mr. Chairman, in my primary school, what we did, I lived a rural primary school life where we did a lot of work in coffee. I have carried coffee on my backside to take it to the factories. First in Ishamara, if anybody knows the place, in Nyeri. We have spent our school holidays in coffee factories where we were drying the coffee beans and so on and so forth.
You know what 4K meant?
Kuungana, kufanya, kuungana,
kuungana, kufanya, kusaidia Kenya.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's what it was.
Yeah, and I was a member of that, and clearly you two are a member. Yeah, that's what it meant. And Mr. Chairman,
Majority Leader didn't know that.
Yeah.
I think he went to school when 4K was dead.
Probably. But it is one of the things perhaps we should think about reviving as we go along. Mr. Chairman, I then went to Kagumo High School, where I studied for 6 years. But in the course of my studies too, I was a member of the agricultural club in the school. And it is through the agricultural club in the school that we actually started eating eggs at Kagumo High School, because it is how we started the school poultry project. And I remember distinctly Mr. Gisheru, who was our teacher, leading that whole project, and just emphasizing to us the importance of agriculture at the time. But I was successful in Kagumo High School, and I went to the University of Nairobi, where, as you graciously acknowledged, Mr. Chairman, we were in school together, where I graduated with a bachelor's degree in commerce. And I want to talk about that commerce degree, Mr. Chairman, because a degree in commerce prepares you generally for business management. May it be the public business in public or business in the private sector. And my education was rounded enough so that in the course of my career, as I left university, in the course of my career, I have managed very different businesses, both in public and private life. I also went on, Mr. Chairman, to do a master's degree at USIU, again in business administration, a master's in business administration, emphasizing my studies more in management information systems as well as finance. Mr. Chairman, during this time, I did my master's when I was working, but I started off my working career at an interesting small place called Mashambani Magazine. Mashambani Magazine was a magazine published by trend publishers, which was about farming. And I later, in my capacity as a marketing manager of that company, closed Mashambani Magazine and replaced it with Farmer's Voice. The Farmer's Voice magazine, which I worked for, was actually the KFA magazine. Those of you who remember, the Kenya Farmers Association is the one that owned the Farmer's Voice, which I published and ran for 2 years. So again, Mr. Speaker, that's why I said the journey that I'm going to explain has gone on to attach me to this interview here today. Of course, I would never have foreseen that this was going to happen. So, Mr. Speaker, having finished my education, I went on to run Trend Publishers, which was Viva better known as Viva Magazine. I left Viva Magazine and joined the Standard newspaper group as advertising manager, followed on where I rose in the group, which was then owned by Lonro East Africa, to become the commercial operations director. Following my 11 years as an employee of Lonro, I then branched out on my own to start my own businesses. And since then, that is what I have been doing in my private life, running businesses over that period since the year 1992, when I left former employment. Mr. Chairman, after that, during my period in the year 2002, I ran for office. I felt that having done being educated, having then gone on to develop a successful career, I felt that I should do some public work and serve the people. And I went to Mukurweini constituency, where I ran for office and was elected in 2002 as a member of parliament for Mukurweini constituency. In the course of that, you will remember, Mr. Chairman, that at that time, cabinet secretaries, cabinet ministers were also appointed from the parliament. And I was appointed as the Minister for Information and Communications in the year 2005. I served as Minister for Information and Communication, and I can say that it is one of my most exciting times. And in terms of preparing me for, again, going back to the cabinet as CS for agriculture and livestock, that's where I cut my teeth in that space of understanding government, being clear about the roles that the different arms of government play, being clear about the role of cabinet, collective responsibility, and other aspects that you learn as you do these jobs. I then, in 2007, I lost my position as member of parliament, but then I was appointed by His Excellency, late President Kibaki, to be chairman of the Multimedia University Council. I was the first chairman of that university and laid the foundation of what is now perhaps a uniquely placed university in terms of the technology space and communication space. And again, I'm very proud of my work there and what we did. I then, Mr. Chairman, left.
Wind up.
I then, Mr. Chairman, went to back to Nyeri County, where I became the senator of Nyeri County. Followed after that by my appointment again back to the cabinet as the CS for health in 2019. And Mr. Chairman, all that experience that I have had, both my education, my experience in school, my experience in private sector, my experience as cabinet secretary and the Minister for Information, Cabinet Secretary for Health, have all, in my opinion, ably prepared me for this particular position.
Thank you. I'll invite members to put questions.
Public Service Cabinet Secretary Justin Muturi has accused National Intelligence Service Director General Nordin Haji of abducting his son, Leslie Muturi, in June last year. Muturi.
Okay, so we've had what Mutekagwe has said. Unajua KKK ni nini?
Yes.
Hiyo 4K, ni 4K ama ni, did you know what that was?
At 4K?
Yes. Ito imesema kuungana, kusaidia Kenya.
Mimi kitu ninaelewa kwa 4K.
Ya screen, ya makamera.
Ni mambo na kamera.
No. So I'm going to read the comments and then we're going to get back to that. So, So anasema Peter Kim anasema Lee cleared his name during campaign, but it could spoil his name even if he doesn't take the appointment. That is exactly what I'm talking about. You need to, people should have the character of face kitu. Face if head on kitu yoyote, whatever it is, like unajua in that room they are gonna do this and this and this, go in that room, face it. Ama niaje, me I usually do like that. Ndakuja hapa Felix nikijua Felix amejama, nikuja hapa we face it, because why should I nini afai kulenga hiyo swali, it could ruin him forever. Face that thing. Either it is making me uncomfortable or making you uncomfortable, just face it, malize. Ama sindio?
Ni hivyo kwa sababu unajua ukijinyamazia kitu ni rahisi upate kiki ku affect. In fact unaweza para umefanya kitu kingine ya shit.
Yes, I usually
at least uongee nikuchoke.
Yes.
At least if ama unaweza para maybe information yenye ulipata exaggerate through na an exaggeration yenye na come across inaweza kuwa in a piece of get. So exaggerated information once imekufikia alafu wewe unaitumia Zulfa unajua unaenda kuhandle huyo mtu kulingana na vile ulisikia information.
Yes.
So hapa vile maybe wali apply hizo formula za kuwataki hapo na kuwauliza, hiyo ni kitu ya maana sababu maybe hata kuna wananchi wenye walikuwa na hiyo information
na wanamwangalia wakitaka aulize hilo swali
alafu they never hawakuwa hata na ukweli get. So wakati walisikia akijieleza kulingana na hiyo issue, na furthermore walikuwa wanajiuliza maswali kulingana na hiyo issue walipara wamejijibu wamejijibu walijibiwa tu unaona. But that is very good in fact.
Yes. Mimi ningekuaga nimeshamwambia ajitayarishe na akue already akona the entire statement, ndo atoe hiyo mentality kwa akili za Kenyans, because right now you just clear your name if you can. So Kimani amwambia Peter Kimani amwambia Kimani that it is true, he performs, he is good, but unajua let me tell you one thing. Ushaona like mtu reputation yake ikiisha kabisa sababu ya kitu kimoja, anaweza kuwa amefanya vitu vingi mzuri like hebu tuone Shetani, si ndio? Shetani alikuwa ni ule the most handsome, the most beautiful creature uko heaven, alikuwa ni mtu ambaye yule, but the moment then alijaribu kitu tu moja, alijaribu tu kuchukua ama kufight au sema alifanyaga nini, alijaribu kufight heaven. That one thing, we know Shetani is Shetani now. We can never change. We know Shetani is Shetani, and now he is blamed for everything. He is blamed for everything that happens. Like hata nikuja sasa nichukue kisu nikudunga nasema blame Shetani. If you cheat on your wife, blame Shetani. You see? So this person should just angekuwa too ready. One thing is that kutanish your entire in fact it takes only one day kuharibu empire imebuildiwa for 1,000 years. One day, in fact 1 minute. So Kim says that Peter, now we have evidence the abductor is Zakayo. And Peter Kim says that yes, the newspapers are calling them chief abductors of Eastern Abduction Community. Umesikia venye wanaitwa? Chief abductors of Eastern Abduction Community. Sawa?
Noma sana hiyo. Yeah.
So we've had Mutai Kagwe anasema ametoka from a very background, very humble background. Sawa, anasema ni mtu ambaye amebeba kahawa kwenye mgongo wake. Amebeba carried kahawa kwa mgongo. Ushaibeba kahawa kwa mgongo?
Zulfa. Hiyo kitu ni mzito. Ikawa yenyewe ama hiyo ni parapol. Unajua umeiuliza design yenyewe na kafani.
Mtaikagu amesema, mbona acha mambo yako. Mtaikagu amesema that yeye is a person mwemeleo kwa hizo farms it was an humble background. Alikuwa akifunga shule, anafanya kazi pale, he used to work kwenye hizo vitu, and I think his family from those fields of kahawa and
truly
stuff. So have you ever carried kwenu Kisii kuna kahawa?
Zinakuanga.
So ushaiwaka hapo ama tea?
Si ni big plantations ni
ama matoke. Have you ever carried matoke kwenda kuuza?
Hiyo.
Yes.
Kwanza ukipata kuna yenye wanaitanga ndizi ng'ombe. Zulfa. Mnatoshana naye. Kuna kilo ngapi Zulfa?
350.
Thank you.
God.
Mnatoshana na hiyo.
So now the thing is, now like if you ever now carried like that, sindio? Now that is the point of Mutahi Kagwe. I'm from a very like that background, sawa? Na amegrown hiyo na sikuwa najua for nini ndio nimesikia mara ya kwanza, sawa? Now people will listen more of that vetting. We should like really listen to these leaders as they speak.
Wait nikuuliza kitu. Na mbona most of the leaders who came from very humble background, they don't want to carry this burden the remaining humble people yenye wako nayo kwa life yao, at least wakae kuwashika mkono kidogo. Mtu tu anafika huko juu anakuwa political, yaani mdomo niko political tu. Mdomo. Unajua politics watu kitu yenye walibarikiwa nao ni kuongea.
They know how to really speak.
Acha nikwambie, unaona mtu mwenye alikuwa anafanya na matendo akisonko. Wacha tuseme ukweli. Mimi nimeona klipu mingi za Sonko akipatia mtu 5,000 akimwambia, "Hii inaweza kukusaidia uongezee stock yako ya nyanya."
Yeah, now those kind of leaders, yes. You know, let me tell you one thing. Sawa? Like unajua people actually who come from these like really poor backgrounds, the moment they go uko juu, they don't want to share. They don't want to share anything and everything from that. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
That's why ninajaribu kusema like acha nikuambie Zulfa. Hii mambo yenye inafanya nini? Hii mambo yenye inafanya mtu akiwalai mimi nayo kitu yenye inafikangi inani.
Kuna mtu ashiniambia, sawa? Ashiniambia mademu ambao wanaringa huku nje ni mademu ambao like wametoka from these really poor backgrounds, wamekuja hapa juzi, amepata ka mshahara ka 50k. Sasa ndio maana kuna issue. But someone who was really grew into that, they will always be humble. They will always know that they understand money now. It's not a big deal. So I don't know about that though, because maybe there are people like us who come from very humble backgrounds na wako tu fit, sindio? So yes, you know, tell us something, as leo tumekuwa tukisikiza the vetting of politicians. Time pale kidogo inatupa nini, but tell me.
Anyway, my point is vetting will never be the answer. Sini ukweli.
Why do you say so?
Because the fact is nyoka ni nyoka na uwezi mbadilisha akuwe samaki.
What do you mean by that?
Kama if those leaders are not leaders, and they are not good servants.
Ana uliza maswali gani?
Yes.
Ana uliza maswali gani? Ana wafanya nini? As long as
even if they can be questioned as many questions as possible, they will never change. You see? And maybe if they were going to help the country, they will help. But if they were not going to do anything, my good sister of mine, they won't. Unaget? The fact is, wacha tu waingie kwa ofisi. Si tuko 25. Next year ni 26. Hii 25 na 26 tuone watakuwa wamefanya nini. Lakini sasa we mwenye ulibeba kahawa kwa mguni. Ulisema ni kahawa ama?
But that is a sub story, yes, kahawa Na hiyo ndio tumesema tu
mwenye alibeba kahawa kwa mgongo. Hiyo si kitu rahisi. But kumbuka pia kuna wenye wanaendelea kuibeba decide. Do you remember them? How are you going to advise the government at least to boost their lives? Ama ni anje?
Yes.
Okay, mimi siwezi advise nini government iende inunulie kila mtu gari, mjengee nyumba, sijui nini kubadilisha maisha ya juu, ni expensive na the government cannot manage. Si ni ukweli Zulf. But kuna mikakati yenye serikali inaweza yeka kuboost maisha yao wasi. Na pia sisi tuache kulia ati watu ni maskini nini. Government iwezi inunulia mtu gari Range Rover imjengea nyumba mpela.
But inaweza jinunulia hiyo.
But kuna vile inaweza ikaweka mikakati Zulfa. Hii mikakati yenyewe iwezeshe hawa watu kuinuka, si ndio? Juu truly naturally enda kwa vijijini uone vile watu wanaishi. Kuna watu wengine wanajikakamua kulimia watu mashamba. Kuna watu wengine wanajikakamua kufanya nini? Kuscoop. Si unajua ile formula ya kuscoop nini, mchanga kwa mto ndio maybe hiyo mchanga ende kuuza. Kuna watu wenye wanajaribu kufanya nini tena ile. Hizo vitu mingi zenye watu wanafanya kungangana na maisha. Una get? So now that yeye anaelewa life ya wale watu wako huko chini, vile aliamua tu kumention mwenyewe, hakuna mtu mwenye alimwambia atumie hiyo reference. Unaona? Ajaribu kuona ni nini anaweza advise the government, at least weke mikakati fulani yenye inaweza fanya wale watu wainuke kiasi, at least life ibadilike, si ndio?
Yes.
Lakini pia wale wenye wako kijijini waseme eti maisha ni ngumu nini, watu hawafanyi hata kazi yao ni ya kwenda kukunywa busa. Unajua busa Zulfa, kwenu kuna busa?
Busa ni nini? Busa ni nini?
Hujui busa?
No. What is that?
Ebu face camera ukikata eti hujui busa.
I don't know. Busa ni nini? Busa ya akili wazee wako na busa nini? What is that?
Wait.
Do you want me to accept that? I don't know what is, but then for real, tell me what is busa.
You don't know?
I don't know.
Let me explain.
Explain to me.
Busa,
yes,
is a traditional liquor.
Uh-huh.
Unasiaga mahindi,
yes,
unatengeneza unga. Ukitengeneza unga, hiyo unga unaenda unachanganya na maji. Sawa? Unatengeneza kama ugali, si uji. Unatengeneza kama ugali. Lakini sasa hiyo ugali ni unga yenye umechanganya na maji baridi. Sawa? Hii unga okay, so unaona kama uko na unga nusu gunia, unaleta maji kiwango fulani, unaweka ndani ya hiyo unga, unaona? Hayo maji sasa yanachanganyikana na hiyo unga, yanatengeneza kitu inakaa kama ugali. Maji baridi, in fact ni kama ulete tu maji mwage ndani ya gunia direct ikiwa ndani na hiyo unga. Sawa? So hiyo unga yenye umechanganya na maji na kaka ugali, uiachi kae kitu kama siku 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
Ita ferment. Zulfa unanisikiza?
Yes.
Ita ferment.
Yes.
Ikiferment itatolewa iende ikaangwe ikae kama zile vitu zinaitwa anje. Zulfa?
Yes.
Itakaangwa, hiyo unga inakaangwa, si inapikwa sasa. Inakaangwa tu na sufuria nyingine kubwa. Sawa? Ina bring up vitu zenye zinakuwa kama two balls, yani zinakaa kama zinakaa kama nini sasa? Two balls, yani tumepira tudogo lakini tena inageuka inakuwa unga.
It's a whole process,
So after that unaenda hiyo unga yenye umekaanga ama umepika vile mnaweza ita, unaiweka ndani ya mtungi. Ukiweka ndani ya mtungi unaleta maji sasa tena unamwaga. So kuna wimbi yenye iko fermented pia.
Yes.
Wimbi yenye sijui kama unajua hiyo wimbi yenye kwanga inatengenezanga lika. Ile wimbi yenye iko fermented. Unaelewa tena? Hiyo ni wimbi yenye imemea. Sikiza nikueleze. Hiyo ni wimbi yenye imemea but ikupeleka kwa shamba.
Okay.
So imekaushwa, inasiagwa, inamwagwa hapo ndani. Ikimwagwa so inakuwa mchanganyo wa ile unga ya kwanza yenye ilikuwa fermented ikakaangwa. Plus hiyo wimbi yenye iko fermented pia. Haya, inatengeneza kitu inafanana na uji yenye inaitwa busa. Sawa sawa? Mimi nimetembea, nimefanya research kwa Malika Industries.
You know me, I don't drink. Sababu
haina shida, wewe acha nikueleze.
I don't know what busa is though.
Yeah, wewe acha nikueleze. So wakati hiyo unga plus hiyo wimbi zimefanya nini, zimechanganyikana hapo ndani na maji, in 2 days coming inageuka substance fulani yenye inafanana na uji ambayo inakaa kali hivi. Ukikunywa mingi unaweza lewa mbaya sana. sawa. So hiyo ndio watu wengi mostly wanakunywa huko kijijini.
Okay.
Na inalewesha na haina faida, ni kukulewesha na kukufanya uendelee kukaa mjinga hapo hivyo. So wengi wenye wako kwa comfort zone kama hiyo, wasilie the life ni ngumu, ikiblame serikali sijui nini. Lakini yule mmoja mwenye kwa mtoni ana scoop mchange tienda kuuza, yule mmoja mwenye anang'ang'ana na nyanya huko, mwenye anang'ang'ana na cabbage, anaenda anapalilia masukuma, anapalilia vitu kwa shamba lake kama la wenyewe, akitafadhali. Na maybe akienda kupeleka soko maybe anauza tena, anapatiwa tax yenye inakaa haiko favorable vizuri. Let us pray hard watu kama hao njia zifunguke, government ipeane mikakati ya kuwasaidia, unaona. So hiyo busa Zulfa, unajua sukari guru
Yutes kama sukari nguru.
Unajua hiyo sukari guru hiyo. Ukileta hiyo sukari guru ukiweka kwa hiyo busa ndani, itageuka ikuwe tena another substance.
What substance?
Sasa hiyo substance watu wengi wanaita ndume. I tell you.
Hey, you're in these things.
No, I'm explaining to you. Unajua mimi ni mse mwenye nimetembea nikiona vile watu wanaishi wakifanya hizo vitu. Hiyo kitu inaitwa ndume. Sasa hiyo ndume ndio inaenda inachemshwa. Unaelewa hiyo process yote yenye nilikuwa
nimesikiza kutoka unga
kutoka mahindi upeleke isiagwe ikue unga, ukuje umwega maji ndani kidogo ikue kama ugali iweke mahali ikue ferment, unaona. So ukiweka sukari nguru hapo ndani hivyo itageuka hiyo substance yenye inaitwa ndume. Sasa hiyo ndume ndio inaenda kuchemshwa. Distillation process ina take place. I tell you, wale wa mama wa kitambo kumbe wako na knowledge. Distillation ina take place. Sasa ile vapor yenye inatoka, unaona ile vapor yenye inatoka kwa hiyo ndume inakuwa distilled kwenda kwa kitu fulani hapo hivyo kenye kanabeba. Inageuka inakuwa chang'aa. Sasa hiyo ndio inatengeneza chang'aa. Yes.
Okay.
Na hiyo chang'aa I tell you 99% alcohol. My friend, ukipata hiyo ukionja hivi kitu kama nusu glass, wewe umezima.
So
yeah.
Okay. So now what about this thing? Hiyo ndio ile yenye sijui unakunywa alafu na ikiwa na maji moto.
Yeah, sometimes unaweza changanya na maji moto. Sometimes unaweza yeka hata limau. Lakini sasa hizo ndio vitu watu wengi vijijini wanafanya. Okay, other people wanatengeneza hizo vitu for the living kwa sababu hakuna jobs, unaona. Wengine wako hapo kukunywa, yani kukunywa tu, kulewa tu, but kwenda kufanya kazi na kujenga taifa hawafanyi.
Yes.
Watu kama hao wasijaribu kunini? Watu kama hao wasijaribu kufanya nini? Kulaumu serikali eti life ni ngumu ama sijui nini ama nini ama nini. But kwa wale wenye wanakaa kujitetea kwa njia moja ama nyingine, kujaribu kujenga taifa, kujaribu kujijenga wenyewe,
it is good, yes.
Zifunguke.
Yeah, so I see pale umeweza kutuelezea. I'm going to read these comments and then we're going to finish, and after pata kwenye sema nasi, si ndio? Inabaki Lewis anasema Lewis anasema good morning everyone. If the chief abductors are known, why are they not dealt with according to the laws of the country? Okay. Then anauliza at Kim, are there no substantial evidence ama ni wanangoja? Sawa. Then Kim anasema seems the president is supreme in Kenya. Let me tell you, that is another thing. It's like he's supreme. Sawa. And then anakuambia wewe, especially in Murima, chang'aa is dominating liquor. I think I'm gonna go to kuna place fulani liambega mnatema mate kwa pot nyi wote, the old people they tema mate and then it is kept. Sawa, ngoja niache mesha baba. And then it is kept, it ferments, and then you guys, that is now the liquor that you're gonna come and take wakati wa Rorasho and Chade is not what you come and now drink. The fermented vikozi vya watu wamezeeka zeka, okay? So yes, let me see. That is that for today. Sindio? Lewis anasema ametext WhatsApp, sawa? Anasema, hello you people, I miss you. We miss you too so much, but ila nenda ukasome kijana, mtoto mdogo nenda kasome, sawa? So that is that for today. Anything you have to say as we finish, as we wrap up this? Yes, Felix?
My word is that vile wali appointiwa, let those people do their work in fact. Let those people do their work.
Okay.
Na if possible, kama anaweza contribute an extra program to the country, we shall appreciate. Ama?
Yes.
Yeah, we shall appreciate. Wasienda huko, nyewe mapolitician mumeshiba kweli. Anyway, wasienda huko wafanya nini? Wasahau watu, wasahau chenye kiliweko huko, watumia ofisi zao vibaya, na mwishowe maybe waleta shame. Anyway, thank you so much guys for your attention, and I really appreciate for joining us. We shall be here right again after how long?
After 2 hours we'll be here.
Thank you so much.
Okay.